Deep within the heart of the vast Texan prairies, where the horizon blends seamlessly with the sky, lay a small, almost ghost-like town. Its few inhabitants, weathered and stoic like the very land they inhabited, whispered age-old, chilling tales of an abandoned ranch that stood solitary on the outskirts. They called it Shadow Ranch, a symbol of fear and the unknown, a place where no sane person dared to tread. It was said that restless souls dwelled within its walls, trapped between worlds, and that anyone foolish enough to disturb their peace would be cursed. Alex, a young and ambitious paranormal investigator, fascinated by mysteries and enigmas since childhood, stumbled upon these legends during his travels through Texas. His heart quickened with anticipation, and he decided that Shadow Ranch would be the perfect location for his next investigation. Armed with state-of-the-art equipment, night vision cameras, sensitive microphones, electromagnetic field detectors, and of course, the trusty voice recorder, he set off for the ranch, determined to unravel its secrets and, perhaps, capture evidence of ghostly existence. As darkness descended and the prairie shadows merged into an impenetrable blackness, Alex approached the ranch. Its massive gates, rusted and half-collapsed, creaked open, allowing him entry. The ranch itself, once grand and thriving, was now a desolate sight. Crumbling roofs, shattered windows, and leaning walls. The wind, whistling through the corridors, created eerie moans like the cries of trapped souls. Despite his professional composure, Alex felt a chill run down his spine. He began exploring the rooms, recording his observations and attempting to document any anomalies. Every creaking floorboard, every rustle of the wind, seemed like an ominous omen. In a dust-laden, cobweb-filled room, he discovered an old, leather-bound diary belonging to the ranch's last owner. The entries revealed that the house was haunted by entities that tormented him and his family. He described strange sounds emanating from the walls, shadows slithering in the corners, moving objects, and the constant feeling of an unseen presence. He was particularly disturbed by mentions of a strange whisper that followed him everywhere and icy touches he felt in the darkness. As Alex delved deeper into the diary, the atmosphere within the ranch grew increasingly oppressive. Strange occurrences began to manifest around him. He heard whispers from empty rooms, footsteps on the second floor, and saw fleeting shadows that defied explanation. The camera captured inexplicable flashes of light, floating dust motes, and objects that seemed to move on their own. Alex felt primal fear creeping in, but he remained resolute, determined to complete his investigation. He set up motion sensors, positioned cameras throughout the ranch, and prepared for the most terrifying night of his life. The night stretched endlessly. Alex experienced moments that forever altered his perception of reality. He witnessed shadows that moved against the laws of physics, heard voices whispering his name, and felt icy touches that seemed to drain his life force. By dawn, as the first rays of sunlight pierced through the mist, Alex, exhausted and shaken, left the ranch, carrying a wealth of recordings and video footage. He was astounded by what he had seen and heard, but couldn't explain it. Back home, he began analyzing the data, searching for logical explanations, but consistently encountered inexplicable phenomena. Alex published his findings online, sparking widespread interest. Many, weary of skepticism and rationalism, were fascinated by his research and shared their own paranormal experiences. Alex gained recognition as an expert in the field, appearing on television and radio and authoring books and lectures. Yet, he remained restless. He continued his investigations, driven to uncover the mysteries of the other side, understanding that Shadow Ranch was merely one of many enigmas awaiting resolution. James had always dreamed of owning a home, and now, after years of saving, his dream had come true. The house on the hill was perfect, quiet, secluded, and full of character. It was an old farmhouse, the kind that seemed to hold stories in every creak in floorboard and dusty corner. His wife, Sarah, was thrilled, and the two of them eagerly began unpacking their belongings. The first night in the new house, James couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. As he settled into bed, he noticed an odd reflection in the bedroom mirror. It wasn't him. It looked like him, but the eyes, his reflection had eyes that seemed different, darker, more knowing. He blinked, and the reflection returned to normal. Must be the lighting, he thought. But as the days went on, the strange feeling lingered. In the days following their move, James and Sarah began hearing things, soft whispers, scraping sounds, like something moving behind the walls. At first, they dismissed it as the house settling, but as the noises grew louder, it became harder to deny. One evening, Sarah swore she heard her name being called from the hallway, but when she went to check, no one was there. James tried to reassure her, but the sense of unease in the house was palpable. One night, as James sat in the living room, he caught a glimpse of something in the reflection of the window, a figure standing in the yard just outside. His heart skipped a beat, but when he turned, no one was there. The air in the room felt heavy, oppressive. Something was wrong. He couldn't explain it, but the house seemed to be pulling them in, as if it was alive. The days began to blur together. James lost track of time, his sleep patterns disrupted by the constant unsettling whispers. But it wasn't just the noises that were getting to him. He began to notice strange discrepancies in the house. Objects would move on their own, things that had been in one place suddenly appearing somewhere else. Sometimes he would find doors open that he was sure he had closed. Then one evening, Sarah disappeared. James had left for a brief errand, and when he returned, she was gone. The house felt different, emptier. There was no sign of struggle, no note, just a lingering silence that pressed against his ears. He searched every room, every closet, calling her name, but there was nothing, only the oppressive quiet. When he returned to the bedroom, he saw her reflection in the mirror, standing behind him, her face pale and expressionless. He spun around, but she wasn't there. Heart pounding, he looked back at the mirror. The figure was gone. And yet, somehow, he couldn't escape the feeling that Sarah was still here, just out of reach. Days turned into weeks, but the house seemed to have no concept of time. James started losing track of how long he had been alone. He kept seeing Sarah, her figure in the corner of his eye, but when he turned to face her, she would vanish. The walls seemed to close in on him, and every time he glanced at the mirror, he saw her face, looking back at him with empty eyes. One evening, James decided to leave. He was going to walk away from the house, leave it behind, and never look back. But as he stepped outside, he was confronted with a strange sight. The road, the hill, the trees. They were all wrong. The landscape was twisted as though he had stepped into a different place altogether. His heart raced. and he turned back to the house. The front door stood open, beckoning him in, but he couldn't remember entering. Had he already been inside? Had he ever left? James's mind was unraveling. The house had become an endless maze, and he couldn't find his way out. The mirrors were everywhere, reflecting things that weren't there, showing him faces that didn't belong to him. And then he saw it. In the hallway mirror, he was no longer alone. Sarah stood beside him, her eyes wide and filled with terror. "James, we need to leave," she whispered, but her voice sounded distant, as though she were speaking from a different world. He turned to her, but when he blinked, she was gone. The house felt like it was closing in on him. The walls pressed against him, and the whispers, louder now, more insistent, filled his head. He ran, desperate to escape, but no matter which door he opened, it always led him back to the same room, the same mirror. And then, as he looked into the mirror one last time, he saw it. His reflection was gone, replaced by the house itself, its walls pulsating with life. The truth hit him all at once. He had never left. The house had claimed him, twisted his mind, and now it was all he knew. The mirror darkened, and his reflection whispered one last thing. "You've always been here."